Hi everybody, my name is Greg Hancock, and along with my Sharpie-wielding friend Patrick Curran, we make up Quantitude. We're a podcast dedicated to all things quantitative, ranging from the relevant to the completely irrelevant. In this week's episode, as we head into the academic job season, we offer some well-meaning advice about one of the most important aspects of an on-site interview, the academic job talk. Along the way, we also mention the changing of the cactus needles, colon blow, big pumpkin, cutting out job ads, the Job Talk Bagel Bar, Waiting for Wisconsin, Why Hat Forever, Hold My Beer, Hello Cleveland, toilet inspirations, the Olympic ice skating hook, cat with a stopwatch, showing your stomach, golf swings, making good choices, and the wisdom of RuPaul. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. I'm going to tell you I'm a little bit annoyed.
It is a day that ends in Y, so do tell.
Come on, I'm the upbeat one in this relationship.
You can be upbeat and annoyed at the same time.
It's true. So you know that fall is my absolute favorite time of year. The leaves are turning color, the weather is starting to get cool and crisp in the mornings. It's hands down my favorite season.
I love in Carolina with all of the trees and the hardwoods and the colors changing.
Yeah.
I grew up in Colorado where fall lasts for like an hour and a half. And then I lived in Phoenix where, the stunning changing of the cactus needles. It's just breathtaking.
I'll tell you what was annoying me. If you're in Europe and you go to a grocery store and you walk down what is ostensibly the cereal aisle, you basically see muesli, 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 all the way down. All of the colon-challenging options that you have there.
Colon blow and new super colon blow.
Colon blow and you in the morning.
We only have a couple of those in the U.S. Instead, in the U.S., right, you walk down the cereal aisle and you see Lucky Charms and Peanut Butter Crunch and Cinnamon Toast Crunch and Reese's Puffs, and there's glazed donut hole cereal. So I'm not kidding. Kit Kat makes a cereal now. I'm fine with that, but the thing that really irritated me was I was at the store going down the cereal aisle, and Cheerios, a staple over the decades of promoting heart health and cholesterol health and all that, Cheerios now has pumpkin spice Cheerios. That's it. I'm out.
I am so glad that you have raised my bromance with Kai Ryssdal.
What? Everything
Well, I mean,
is
that's logically what you were talking about.
Sure.
So it's well established that I have a bromance with Kai Ryssdal. Kai doesn't know this.
In spite of your emails and texts.
He is the host of Marketplace.
In Los Angeles, I'm Kai Ryssdal.
And indeed, I actually got an audio submission on one of his other podcasts that he commented on. And so that was the highlight of my adult life.
Yes, to all of that.
That was Patrick in North Carolina, by the way.
Anyway, he has a hatred of pumpkin spice that eclipses any annoyance you might have.
I'm feeling an obligation here, professionally and personally, to get biases on the table. I am opposed in every measure to pumpkin spice and pumpkin spice lattes. Where do you stand?
He did a fundraiser where if they made enough money, he drank pumpkin spice live on YouTube. We are now going to do a Quantitude fundraiser for DonorsChoose.org where you eat a bowl of pumpkin spice Cheerios to support low-income schools. Where is your hatred of this?
I just don't like Big Pumpkin telling me
Do you know what else is in the air? Not just Big Pumpkin.
Okay.
With the colors of the leaves changing, the temperature dropping. It is find a job season.
It is. For me, back in the day, it meant going to the Chronicle of Higher Education and cutting out little job ads and tacking them to a corkboard.
Yep, that's where I was. These job ads, I mean, there were, a variety of things you could do, but really the core one was your standard tenure track assistant professor job They would post the ad in this newspaper that was a literal paper newspaper.
Yep.
There was no internet at this time. And we're not talking 1940. You and I would have been looking in the early 90s.
Yep.
And the funny thing, we see these job ads now, and it starts out with like, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, and we seeketh the following. And there's like 3 paragraphs. Before, the job description would be seeking assistant professor, inquire.
Within. It is that time of year, and a number of the people who listen out there may be going on the academic job market right now in this time of year, and they're not cutting out articles from the Chronicle of Higher Education.
It is so much more complicated, but in a good way, because again, when Greg and I came up through the system, there really was one of 2 options if you were going into academia. There was a postdoc, or you went into a tenure track position. Now, there are so many different ways that you can go into, using air quotes, an academic position, whether that be in a traditional tenure track faculty position, a teaching position, a research scientist, a postdoctoral fellowship, some kind of postdoc scientist that is less fellowship and more being a contributing scientist in the lab. There are just many, many, many of these options.
Oh, yeah.
There are tons of different things that go into an application that vary across these jobs. You know, a cover letter, a CV, a research statement, a teaching statement, reprints, preprints, all of this.
Yep.
Some do pre-interviews, some do post-interviews. Almost everybody does the standard kind of 2-day in-person interview. But no matter where you are in all this heterogeneity, what is the common denominator that runs through all of them?
That is the job talk.
The job talk.
Yep.
And that's what we want to puzzle through today. We are going to have a guest on in the next episode that's going to talk about non-academic jobs.
Oh, can I talk about porn? Because porn is kind of a big thing. Can I say anything about porn?
I got to tell you, everyone we've ever interviewed has said, can I talk about porn?
Well, you see, unexpected porn, that's bad. But expected porn...
Is expected porn the long-run average of porn?
Today, we're going to focus on academic jobs writ large, and central to every single one of these is at some point in your on-site interview, you are asked to give a research talk. And it's often called a job talk. Now, let's think before we get into it a little bit. In your view, why is someone asked to give a job talk?
I could list off a lot of different goals that this job talk is meant to achieve, but I think there is one super goal, and that quite simply is for people to see whether or not they want you as a colleague. And that means a lot of different things, but the goal of this talk is for you then to help them visualize you as the colleague, as the person in the office next door, as the person they go to faculty meetings with, as the person that they go to socials with, as a person who represents their program, their department, their institution out in the world. That's all. That's all you have to do. But in the end, for me, it's just about whether or not they want you as their colleague.
I couldn't agree more. I feel like people way overly focus on the research part. I'm going to talk about this study and then this study and then this study, and then I'm going to lay out a timeline for what I'm going to do in the next 3 years and where I'm going to apply for funding, and I'm going to put in as many citations to my own work as I can. And those are all within reason good things to do, but I couldn't agree with Greg more. This is, what kind of person are you going to be if you were to come to that institution? I think about it as a test drive of a car. What are you going to get for your money? What kind of teacher? What kind of communicator? How do you respond to questions? How do you treat other people? How do you manage time? Those, I think, are the soft targets. The other ones, and we're going to talk a lot about some do's and don'ts in our view, because between the two of us, I don't know, have we been to a couple hundred job talks maybe?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, for sure. And we've been through them ourselves as well, right?
Oh, yeah.
So we've sweated through these. We've probably made horrific mistakes. What I really wouldn't want to be is a person sitting in the audience of the job talks that I gave back in the day. But yeah, you and I have seen a lot of these, and we've also coached a lot of people through this, right? Helped to prepare our students to go out there into the world. And so we thought we would share some advice along the way. Now, we have tons of advice about the whole job process, right? If someone says, hey, what should I do for a cover letter? What should I do when I visit? What should I do when I go out to dinner with the search committee? We have tons of experiences and advice around all of those things, but we're going to consolidate it down just to the job talk.
And as for everything that you just said, be prepared, be a decent person, and don't drink alcohol. Those are like my 3 big ones. We can give you back channel a bunch more details if you want. But now we're going to focus on the job talk. Have you ever had a talk yourself when you've been up at the front of the room go catastrophically wrong?
I've offended somebody in the room by casting aspersions on their research. I didn't know I had done it, but the person started to get a little bit uppity during the talk. It was mainly because I hadn't done my homework. So I've had to fight a battle of sorts in front of other people. And, that wasn't a bad thing. I think I handled it well, but I should have been better prepared for it. The worst one really for me was when I had to give a talk and 4 people came and they scheduled it early in the morning. It was 8:30. They put out a full bagel bar and all of that to try to get people to come. And then people would start coming in the room. But what they would do is they would just cut in front of me, grab a bagel, and then leave. So they're like, excuse me, getting food. So I don't think that one was on me, but still, it's hard to play to a room where there are more people coming and going with bagels than there are in the room to attend your talk.
I was fortunate. I didn't have a catastrophic one. Probably the worst was I had slides on an LCD and it was shown against a whiteboard. Mm-hmm. There were right there on the table whiteboard markers in front of the whiteboard, and I uncapped it and went to write an equation next to this nonlinear function I had. Yeah. And somebody said, no, as I did it. And it was not a whiteboard. It was a silk screen. And so somewhere to this day, why hat sabai is written permanently on a silk screen. But I think my all-time favorite, and I got to tell you, Hancock, I think this is my year, is in the fall of 96. I interviewed at the University of Wisconsin at Madison, and I desperately wanted this job. It's an amazing department. I love Madison.
Oh, yeah.
I'm related to half of the state of Wisconsin. I was the only one who interviewed for the position. They still haven't let me know. So if you are at the University of Wisconsin, I feel like this is my year.
It's going to happen. I feel it, Patrick.
I'm liking my odds. So where do we start? Assuming people aren't walking in front of you getting bagels.
Well, I mean, I have a lot of advice about the job talk itself. You might disagree with some of these things. You might agree with some of them. Let me start by reiterating something that we've said, and that is that this job talk has to accomplish a whole lot of things, right? It has to sell you as a teacher, as a colleague, as a potential advisor, all of these things. That's a lot of pressure on you, but you absolutely can do it, right? And there's some things that we can go through. The first thing for me in a job talk, and what I usually coach my students and mentees to do, is to start off a little bit about you as a person and the research that you're interested in, right? And both of those things, hi, I am Patrick Curran, and
I'm sorry I ruined your $1,000 screen.
Bummer. Yeah. Why hat forever? No, but people need to see you as a human being. If the first thing that you say is, just put up an equation on the screen, and I don't mean literally on the screen. If the first But if the first thing you do is you start right in with an equation, I just don't think that's setting the relationship that you want to have. People have to see you as a human being. especially because the people who attend a quantitative talk, oftentimes the majority of them are not quantitative people. If the quantitative program is embedded within some larger department, some larger college or school, many of the people who attend are not there to see whether or not you know quantitative stuff. They're there to see whether or not you are able to communicate, whether or not you are able to be a colleague. So starting off with something that is a soft introduction to you, your research interests, how you found your way to this field, I think is a really good way to ease into this relationship.
It's what you and I ask for from people when they visit on the podcast is give us your origin story.
Exactly.
How did you get here? What is motivating you? Why are you doing this? It's kind of a nice soft start to things, right? Do not say, thank you for that kind introduction. Let X be a P by P symmetric matrix. I mean, don't do that.
Yep.
They have all your paperwork, but the majority of the people in the room haven't seen those papers.
Yep.
The committee has read everything, but maybe that's only 3 or 4 people. Often there will be 20 or 30 people, and depending upon the esprit de corps of the department, there may be 40 or 50 people.
Yep.
And none of them know who you are. Just give a colloquial, gentle origin story, and then use that to pivot into how did that serve to bring you to what you're going to talk about today.
And what you're going to talk about today, I tend to like to have people frame that within a program of research to start. So you can go directly to your provocative research question. That's okay. That can be a good intro. But as I'm learning about you as a person, I like to hear the kinds of things that you work on, right? I want to know this broader context of you. So if you're someone who works in the longitudinal arena, then tell us a little bit about how you came to longitudinal things, what some of the longitudinal modeling questions are that you've worked on. Now I'm getting a sense of your landscape. And then I like it that you zoom in and say, today the thing that I'll be addressing is the following. So big picture you, big picture broad research landscape, and then zoom into the thing that you're going to be talking about, and then get me to care about it.
Oh, and so many people don't. You're sitting there and, here's another hour that I'll never get back. I talk to my students about a job talk as, what have you done? What are you doing? What are you going to do? Mm-hmm. And then having that programmatic thread that runs through it. You're not a cat with a laser pointer. What is your program of research that you're systematically pursuing in an integrated way? How does one study or project lead to another? Again, what are they going to get if they buy you?
Yes.
Right? As the Amazon truck came and they opened up the box and they're glowing in the bottom as a shiny new PhD, if they buy this, what are they going to get for the money? And Greg is spot on. Make the room care. It doesn't have to be this is going to save children or this is going to cure or whatever. It doesn't have to be that caring. But why is this an important, meaningful question? And how are you contributing to that in some unique way?
There's some research that I've been working on for the last couple of years with our dear friend and colleague, Yi Feng at UCLA, that deals with power analysis. And in that research, it gets pretty technical in spots. And I would love to do a job talk on this particular topic, but I'm sure as heck not going to lead with some of the technical aspects. What I want to do with the people in the room is sort of like, how many of you here have had to plan a study? How many of you here have been writing a grant and you know that you have to come up with a sample size? Doesn't it feel like you have to look into a crystal ball and know things that your study is actually designed to try to learn about? So I want to get everybody in the room to relate to the problem, to connect with the research question that I have. And if you can't do that, I think there's a larger problem. Even if you are working on a very, very technical issue, something in how to estimate specific parameters in item response theory models, something like that, start by pulling back and saying, what we really want to do is get the best estimates of people's ability, right? Who doesn't want to know that? You have to start broad. You have to start with something that everybody in there connects to before you get into the weeds.
So the motivation for your opening of your talk on power when you visited me at Carolina of me holding a beer, flipping the camera off, was that casting that kind of welcoming net?
So when I showed a picture in my talk of you flipping me off, that was me getting the entire audience to relate to me, because I bet every one of them could relate to that picture of you.
But here's the big challenge as well, is if you're foolish enough to squander your time in listening to us right now, you have some interest, even passing, in quantitative-like things. And let's assume, and this is a decent assumption, because for a lot of these kinds of jobs, there is some expectation of having quantitative knowledge. But this makes it really challenging sometimes, because you can have a room that is highly heterogeneous in comfort with quantitative. So you may have the chair of statistics there if she is part of some data science initiative that the dean is contributing some money. You may have people from counseling, psych, from ed, from developmental. And so toward Greg's point, this is a really hard needle to thread of how do you talk about the quantitative work and at what level, and trying to maintain kind of multiple audiences at once. And I got to tell you, you really can make mistakes at either end. If you go in with just pages of derivatives, you're going to lose everybody in the room.
Yep.
But also, we had a guy come in, and I am sitting in between Ken Boland and Dave Thisson. All right, the three of us are at a table.
Bringing the average IQ down a little bit.
And, so here sits two of the most important quantitative methodologists alive today. And the person said, okay, now I'm going to talk about what's called a derivative. And he said, ooh, math. Now, don't worry. I'm going to take your hand and I'm going to walk you through this. And I'm like, come on, Boland, have at him. Come on, man.
Hold my beer.
Hold my beer.
The cracked a cold one said, let's make it clear. Tonight's the night. Hold my beer.
So this is in part the preparation. You have to know what is the job position, what are they looking for, and it's perfectly reasonable to ask your host, who might you expect to be in the audience? Don't try to flex in front of the mirror and use equation after equation. Nobody cares about that. If it serves a purpose, then have equations. If not, don't put it there as some kind of proof that you're smart. But also, don't undermine things to a point where you're being patronizing.
Some nice things in what you said, like one about knowing who's going to be in the room. I think it's really important. And maybe you know the actual people who will be in the room, certainly search committee people. Maybe you don't know the other people. But one of the things I like to coach students to do is to look at some of the research that other people work on, not just quantitative stuff. I mean the substantive stuff outside of quant that people work on. And then if you were presenting something about nonlinear longitudinal models, then you might say, some of the work that Professor so-and-so has done, for example, has looked at this developmental phenomenon in children. Imagine she is interested in finding the point where children level off in their development. Well, the kinds of models that we'll be talking about here today would have wide applicability for those kinds of things. I like when the presenter shows that they've done their homework. It can't come off as butt kissing, but it is trying to show that you have an interest in what goes on there, and the things that you work on have applicability to people who might be in the room.
I really love that, as long as it's not disingenuous.
Yep.
I hate it when it's like, well, Dr. Smith has paradigm-changing work on, and then they look at the palm of their hand, reading recognition. It's like, this is Spinal Tap, as they write the name of the city on the back of the guitar.
That's right.
Hello, Cleveland!
It shows preparation. It shows that you care. And again, think about yourself as a shiny little object in an Amazon cardboard box, which is, if they were to hire you, how would you fit in to the group of people that are already here?
Yeah.
Make it sincere. And people really like that. It's a nice thing sometimes where somebody calls you out and gives you an attaboy about your work.
And now that person sees you as a potential collaborator, someone they could work with to do something exciting in their arena. And you want to see that kind of excitement about the possibilities that you bring to this program or department.
Here's one of the things that is frustrating to me in many, many of these talks. If you have an hour and they say we'd really like about 45 minutes of a talk and allow 15 minutes for questions. I get so frustrated when it's at minute 58 and they say, oh, well, I'm sorry, I'm going to wrap up here, and there are no time for questions.
I still have a bunch of slides, but...
Yep. There's really very few things you can do worse than that.
Yep.
If they ask you to leave time for questions, for the love of all that is sacred, leave time for questions.
For sure.
It shows poor clock management. It shows poor preparation. It shows that you didn't practice. And then it's not respectful to the room.
Yeah.
And if you don't take questions, you're literally saying, yeah, I'm just going to present what I have and walk away. From a practical standpoint, if they say 45 minutes, target 40 minutes when you're preparing it. Then it'll go a little bit long to 45 and leave that time. But in order to do that, don't put in every study you've ever done. If you're fortunate to have a large body of work, it's very reasonable to say, I've done a lot of work on power. Let's say, follow Greg's example. So I've done a lot of work on power. And I'm going to pick one particular thing that I just recently finished that highlights a lot of the issues that are involved in my work. So you can talk about it as like a sampling, or it's representative, or this is something I'm particularly excited about. But don't take your body of work and wedge it into a box with a hammer and try to fit in everything you've ever done, because that's going to be a fail right out of the gate.
Yeah, they don't have to know everything about you in this one talk. In fact, I think a smarter thing is you start off at 30,000 feet in your talk, and then you come down to closer to the ground. As you start getting more toward the end, that's where you can give a sense of some of the other things that you have done, or what I prefer is some of the places that you will go. So as you get out of the specific topic, there should be a lot of other things that you're interested in pursuing. Some of them might relate to what you've just talked about. Some of them might relate to other areas of interest that are hopefully fairly adjacent, not like the cat with the laser pointer, as Patrick mentioned. But as you're pulling out, these people have to see you as not just accomplished at what you have just told them about, but also with tremendous potential. Lay out where you intend to go from here so people see you as someone who has plans, someone that they don't keep having to pop by your office and say, so are you working on anything? Have you thought about the next thing you're going to work on? Come in with an agenda.
I like it if there's a slide that says my 3-year plan or my 5-year plan, but everything in moderation. Do a small number of realistic kinds of goals that you have, and not this laundry list that's just unrealistic and nobody knows, well, what are you actually going to do?
Yep.
Right? That's part of the problem is you say, okay, yeah, you've listed 20 things. It's kind of like the CV where you get and there are 15 in preparation papers listed. And it's like, come on. You were on the toilet and just wrote down this title, and that's a in preparation. You know, everything in moderation. And, oh, for heaven's sake, have something a person can take with them when they walk out of the room. And it doesn't even have to be an empirical finding, right? It can be a theoretical development. It can be a conclusion. It can be a call for future research. But when people are walking out, give them a bagel and a point.
And you know what would help to iron that out and make sure that you actually have a point is if you practiced your talk ahead of time.
But Dr. Hancock, I practiced at my kitchen table and I came in at 43 minutes. So I have practiced.
Okay. Thank you very much. The next shuttle for the airport leaves at... I mean, seriously, it's like in Olympic ice skating that if someone falls, just get a hook out there and pull them off the ice. Right? There are some job talks where someone does something or says something, and you just want a trap door to open up in the floor. You're like, okay, well, that's a time saver. So do you guys do something special around practicing, or how do you guys handle that?
I think this is one of the most important aspects of preparing. What we have students do, we fill a room full of people and you give it.
Yep.
We have in character and out of character. In character, I literally will introduce the person as they would be. They get up. We have questions as you would have.
Great.
And then we go out of character and give feedback. Then the student will revise the talk and we do it again.
Nice.
We fill the room and we run it coast to coast, in and out of character. More often than not, then some little bit of polishing is left, and that's good. But we have had people do it a third time. And not because it's bad, right? It can be really quite good, but you have these experts in the room who are giving you feedback.
Yep.
So I cannot stress enough, practice it again, and practice it again.
Yeah.
And not to your cat with a stopwatch, but to somebody who you have a relationship with, who's going to at the end lean back and say, you kind of lost me when you started talking about this slide.
Yeah. It's such an important part of this process, and I love the way you handle it, and we try to accomplish similar things here at Maryland. But for folks who are out there, the message is give your talk in front of people. Ask them to ask difficult questions. Ask them to tell you if something's not working, and make revisions. You do not want the first real time that you're giving the talk to be in front of the audience that you are trying to make the impression upon. So that is one of the most important pieces of advice, and I love the infrastructure that you have for that.
You put your finger on a really important thing, which is part of the practice is responding to questions.
Yeah, questions really take a lot of presence of mind to be able to answer. I always will tell my students that you don't have to have the answer to every question. It really is okay to say, I don't know. Or it is okay to model thinking through that aloud in front of those people. It is okay to try to answer it and say, did you have some thoughts on that as well? So it's okay to become a partner in trying to address the question. Just be the colleague that they would want you to be as you're thinking through something.
It goes back to what is the purpose of this talk, and it is how are you going to be as a colleague?
Yeah.
How do you respond to people? How do you communicate with people? The number of people I have seen get irritable when they're asking questions, get defensive. I saw a job candidate say, well, if you think that's a concern, what would you do then?
Oh, gosh.
But also, don't roll over and show your stomach as a submissive gesture. What I always tell my students, defend, but don't be defensive. Mm-hmm. People want to hear you stand up for what you did and what you believe and the decisions that you made. So you're defending your work, but then don't just dismiss. I think questions are critically important part of the talk, and being able to comfortably say, that's a really good question, and I don't know. I would need to think about that a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a coast-to-coast thing. I've got some little nickel and dime things. A lot of it is, it's just your style is, are you a little more humorous or not? Are you more colloquial or not? Do you move around or do you like to stand at a podium? Sometimes you can get too much in your head. If somebody starts saying, no, you shouldn't do that. Now put your hand there. Now look there. It's like a golf swing where you're trying to do 8 different things. Well, a big part is just be yourself. But I gotta tell you, and I'm gonna guess that you maybe do this. I don't know. We haven't talked about this before the recording. Mm-hmm. I tell students, this is 1 hour. This is just part of a whole constellation of things. Your work, your CV, your letters of recommendation, 2 days of interviews. Have fun. You have this gift of being able to share your work with a room full of people who are interested. This really is just one small part. That's a damn lie.
Totally.
This is probably the most important hour of the entire thing. Do you do this?
Yep. You ease them into it exactly the way you said, hey, it's just one piece of data. It's the most important piece of data.
It is. It really is. And part of it is the way the system works. Only 3 or 4 or 5 people are actually going to see all your written materials. For the majority of people, not only in the department, but who are going to cast a vote, that is the only exposure to you they have.
Yep.
And I am genuinely sincere. It is fun. It is a gift. It is an opportunity. But this is the most important 60 minutes of your professional life at this point. Have fun.
Make good choices. Totally. All they needed to get from your talk is, are you going to be the teacher of students they want? Are you going to be the mentor of students that they want? Are you going to be the colleague that they want? Are you going to be the representative of their institution that they want? Are you going to be the researcher that they want, both in your own discipline as well as in the collaborations that they need? Other than that.
So we have two things we watch in the house that I really like. We've talked about F1 before. We will get up at 7 a.m. on a Sunday to watch a F1 race.
It's lights out and away we go.
Uh-huh.
We also watch RuPaul's Drag Race. I think my all-time favorite is Ginger Minge, although I have kind of a crush on Bosco.
Bosco serves high-class, glamorous sex. Ginger Minge serves smoky, barroom brawl kind of bitch.
RuPaul has a tagline that she uses every time.
Uh-huh.
They have the Maxi Challenge, they have the runway walk, and then the final two do a lip sync to find out who the winner is.
Uh-huh.
Before they start the final lip sync, she always says,
good luck and don't f it up.
On that note.
good luck, everybody. And this really is a fun, exciting time. And even with the stress and the angst and the frustrations, I look back at this with fond memories because it's new and it's challenging. And it really is an exciting time. So good luck with your applications. And next time, we're going to talk about how do you consider jobs in non-academic settings. And we're going to have a guest who's going to help us with that. So please join us then.
Can I talk about porn?
Take care, everybody.
All right, see ya.
Thanks so much for joining us. You can subscribe to Quantitude on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you go for things to psych yourself up before your research talk. You can also follow us on X, Blue Sky, or Instagram. We are at Quantitude Pod. And visit our website at quantitudepod.org, where you can leave us a message, find playlists, show notes, class syllabi, and other fun stuff. Finally, get cool Quantitude merch like mug stickers and notebooks from redbubble.com, where all proceeds from non-bootleg authorized sellers go to donorschoose.org to help support low-income schools. This episode of Quantitude has been brought to you by Jobitude, a suite of advanced products dedicated to improving your research talk and job offer prospects. Examples include the Jobitude Anecdote Generator. Simply enter where you're from, where you're visiting, and a recent current event, and let Jobitude create a humorous and engaging anecdote that you can use to open your talk. The Jobitude Sycophant Identifier. Let our AI-powered facial recognition system access the camera on your laptop to identify the names and areas of expertise of key people in the audience so you can repeatedly call them out by name and praise their most recent work. The Jobitude Laser Shock Pointer. This patented handheld laser pointer will administer a painful and sustained shock after exactly 45 minutes so that you will never again not allow time for questions. Side effects include loss of consciousness, complete voiding of bowels, long-term memory loss, and electrocution of anyone within a 20-foot radius. And finally, the Jobitude Britishinator. If you feel like your talk is really going sideways on you, turn on this real-time voice translator that will re-express whatever you have to say using a delightful British accent. I mean, seriously, who doesn't love a British accent? Well, other than the Irish. You have been listening to Quantitude, a podcast that you would do well to claim absolutely no knowledge of throughout the entirety of your job interview.